What if everything you believed about getting old was wrong? Mary's hands trembled as she gripped the edge of the kitchen table, the fluorescent light above casting a cold glow on the cracked linoleum beneath her. At 68, she was sitting alone in the small house she and her late husband had shared for nearly 40 years. The silence felt heavier than ever tonight. She stared down at the prescription bottle in front of her, the label warning her to take as directed, but avoid strenuous activity. The doctor's voice echoed in her mind, "Mary, at your age, you really should slow down." Those words felt like a sentence, a verdict that dimmed any flicker of hope she'd been nurturing. Was this it? Was this all there was left? The slow fade into obscurity, the gradual loss of relevance. She felt invisible, like a ghost drifting through a world that no longer had room for her. The ache in her knees was nothing compared to the ache in her heart. She looked out the window at the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, life was moving fast, young people chasing dreams, building futures, while she was stuck in this moment, a prisoner of time and circumstance. But then, her phone buzzed. A notification popped up, "Elon Musk, age is no barrier. It's a limitation only if you let it be." Mary had never been much for social media, but something about that quote caught her attention like a spark in the night. She clicked the link and watched a short clip of Elon Musk speaking at a conference, his voice steady and sure. "If you're not failing, you're not innovating," he said. "Every setback is a step forward. It doesn't matter how old you are. What matters is if you keep going." The words resonated deep inside her. Could that be true? Could she still have something left to give? Something that mattered? A small, hesitant flame of hope flickered. She typed a comment under the video, "I'm 68 and I feel forgotten. But maybe it's not too late." The screen responded instantly with likes and replies from others who shared her feeling of invisibility but also their desire to keep pushing. She was not alone. A lump formed in her throat. For the first time in a long time, she felt a thread of connection, a reminder that life was not over, just different. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Mary's mind raced as she sank into the warm kitchen chair. What was her one thing? What had kept her going through all these years of quiet struggle? The memory came unbidden, her late husband, Tom, smiling across the breakfast table, reminding her that every day was a gift. But since he'd passed, those days had felt like shadows, stretching endlessly ahead with no light to guide her. She felt stuck in a loop of regrets. Regrets over the book she never wrote, the dreams she shelved to raise children and care for others. Regrets over the friendships that drifted away and the growing distance with her daughter, who thought she was living in the past. She had tried to speak up, to share her hopes, but her voice often fell on deaf ears, dismissed as old-fashioned or out of touch. Tonight, in the stillness of her kitchen, Mary faced the question that haunted her most: was she really too old to matter? She wiped a tear from her cheek and whispered to the empty room, "Maybe Elon Musk is right. Maybe I haven't run out of time." The night pressed in, but for the first time, it wasn't suffocating. It was full of possibility. Mary stood up slowly and walked to the window. Outside, the stars were faint but visible, like distant fires burning against the dark. Somewhere out there, people were dreaming, building, living boldly. And maybe she could too. She reached for her notebook, dusted off from years of neglect, and wrote at the top of the page, Chapter 1, the beginning of the rest of my life. This was the moment it all changed. The moment she decided to stop fading and start shining. The moment she would no longer accept being too old as an excuse, but see it as a challenge. A call to arms. To anyone reading or listening, if you've ever felt forgotten or too old to make a difference, remember Mary's story is just beginning. Hit subscribe and share your own spark. Because this isn't the end, it's the start of something new. Something real. Something powerful. What's your spark? What's your story? Because age is just a number. It's never too late to matter. Mary's life before this moment of quiet desperation was a mosaic of ordinary days filled with love, loss, and quiet sacrifice. She was born and raised in a small town in Ohio where everybody knew your name and your business, where the seasons painted the world in familiar rhythms, and the local diner still served the best apple pie west of the Mississippi. Her childhood had been simple but full of hope, raised by parents who believed in hard work and kindness. From a young age, Mary had wanted to be a nurse. She loved the idea of helping others, of being someone who made a difference in moments of pain and fear. When she graduated from nursing school in the early 70s, she carried those dreams with her like a torch, eager to light the way for others. She married Tom, her high school sweetheart, a sturdy man with laughter that could fill a room and hands that built their little home with love and sweat. Together, they raised 2 children, Emily and Jack, in that same small town. Mary gave up the idea of writing her book to be present for her family, caring for her aging parents and then her children. Nursing shifts were long and exhausting, but it gave her a purpose outside the home, a chance to be herself. She poured herself into her work at the local hospital, comforting frightened patients, holding trembling hands through surgery prep, and celebrating tiny victories. But as the years passed, Mary felt her own dreams quietly shelved, buried beneath the weight of responsibility and routine. When Tom passed away suddenly 5 years ago, it felt like the light went out in her world. The house felt emptier, colder. Emily and Jack had grown up and moved away to cities full of opportunity and noise, and visits grew fewer as time went on. Mary's days settled into a slow pattern of isolation. She was no longer the vital, vibrant woman who walked hospital halls or rocked her children to sleep. Instead, she became a shadow wandering through her memories, weighed down by regrets she dared not say aloud. She remembered the worn leather notebook where she once wrote the beginnings of that book she dreamed about, pages filled with stories of her nursing days, stories that could teach, inspire, maybe even heal. But the notebook sat on a shelf collecting dust, just like her hopes. Loneliness wrapped around her like a heavy shawl. She missed Tom's easy smile, the warmth of their shared mornings, the sound of children's laughter in the hall. She missed being seen, not just by others, but by herself. In those moments, she felt like she was fading away, becoming irrelevant in a world that no longer recognized her value. A letter from her daughter Emily sat unopened on the kitchen counter. Emily had once told her mother she worried about Mary living in the past, clinging to memories instead of embracing the future. The words stung. They felt like a final nail in the coffin of her worth. She longed to reach out, to bridge the growing gap between them, but fear and pride kept her silent. A particular memory haunted Mary most, the day Tom fell ill. She had been a nurse, trained to be strong and calm, but the helplessness she felt as she watched him struggle in the hospital bed was overwhelming. She stayed by his side through nights thick with machines and whispered prayers. When he finally passed, the world felt wrong, unbalanced. That loss was the moment her lost self slipped away, the woman who dreamed, who hoped, who fought for more. Mary's body had begun to betray her too. Years of long shifts, bending over patients, sleepless nights caring for her family had left her knees aching and her energy waning. Walking to the mailbox was now a small victory. Even in her mind, she fought battles against the creeping belief that aging meant decline, invisibility, and a slow fade into nothingness. Yet, somewhere beneath that fear was a stubborn ember that refused to die, a flicker of the woman she once was, the woman she could still be. She kept the old photographs in a box, pictures of birthday parties, holidays, graduations. She looked at them often, tracing faces with a trembling finger, longing for the laughter and hope captured in frozen moments. But she also knew she couldn't live in those snapshots forever. Something had to change. One rainy afternoon, as Mary sat by the window watching droplets race down the glass, she felt the weight of years pressing on her chest. The walls of her home, once full of love and life, felt like they were closing in. She thought of Elon Musk's quote again, the one about age being no barrier unless you let it be. She wondered if he could possibly understand what it felt like to wake up each day feeling invisible. But maybe that was exactly why his words mattered. They were a challenge, a dare to rise from the quiet despair and claim a new chapter. She closed her eyes and remembered the nurse she used to be, the helper, the healer, the woman who made a difference every day. That woman was still inside her. The question was, how to bring her back to life. Mary reached for her phone and typed out a message to a former nursing colleague she hadn't spoken to in years. It was a simple note, "I'm thinking about starting something new. Could we talk?" Her heart pounded as she hit send. For the first time in a long time, there was a sense of possibility. Maybe it wasn't too late to matter. Maybe her story wasn't finished. She thought about Emily and Jack again, wondering if they would see her in a new light. Or if she would have to find new people who believed in her. The path ahead was uncertain, but the first step was clear. Mary picked up the dusty notebook from the shelf and flipped it open. The pages were yellowed, the ink faded, but the words were still hers. She read a sentence aloud, "Every life is a story waiting to be told." Maybe it was time to tell hers. Mary sat in her worn armchair, the glow of the TV flickering across her face as the evening news droned on. Her mind wasn't on the stories of politics or weather but on the growing turmoil inside her. The question she had been wrestling with for weeks now echoed louder every day: was it really too late for her? At 68, with aching knees and a heart full of regrets, the voice inside whispered, "You're too old. Who cares what you want now?" She had tried to ignore it, to push it away like a bad dream, but it clung to her like a shadow. Her daughter's last phone call still rang in her ears, laced with concern but unmistakably skeptical. "Mom, you need to slow down. We worry about you chasing things that don't matter anymore. Maybe it's time to accept things as they are." The words felt like a lock snapping shut on a door Mary wasn't ready to close. Was she really clinging to illusions? Was the world right to dismiss her dreams now that she was past her prime? She looked around the quiet house, the silence broken only by the ticking clock and her own shallow breaths. No one was coming to cheer her on or tell her she still mattered. The doctor's warnings, her daughter's doubts, society's unspoken rules, they all stacked up against her. She felt herself shrinking, fading into the background of a world that no longer had space for her voice. Then, one evening, while scrolling through her phone, she stumbled across a podcast featuring Elon Musk. He was talking about failure, age, and innovation in a way that caught her off guard. "People often think you have to start young to make a difference," Musk said. "But really, it's about how willing you are to keep learning, to keep pushing, no matter your age. Age is just a number. What matters is the mindset." Mary paused the podcast and stared at the screen, the words seeping into the cracks of her doubt. Could it be true? Was her entire life of feeling invisible built on a lie she had accepted? She listened to more clips, watched interviews, and read quotes where Musk spoke of being comfortable with failure and seeing limitations as challenges, not barriers. He talked about his own setbacks, how many times Tesla and SpaceX had been written off as lost causes. But he kept going, fearless and relentless. The clash inside Mary grew louder. On one side was the weight of years, the physical pain, the isolation, the fear of rejection. On the other was a flicker of hope that maybe she could rewrite her story. She felt torn, like a battle between the old, defeated version of herself and the woman Musk's words were calling forth. But every time she tried to imagine taking a step forward, that old voice whispered, "Why bother? Who will listen? You're too late." She realized the war was not just external but deeply internal. She was fighting herself. One afternoon, after a particularly hard night of self-doubt, Mary decided to test her resolve. She reached out to Emily, her daughter, hoping to find some connection, maybe a glimmer of support. But the conversation was strained. Emily's voice was gentle but firm. "Mom, I want you to be happy, but you can't keep chasing dreams that don't fit who you are now." The words hurt, not because they were unkind, but because they echoed what she feared most, that she was out of place, out of time. Mary hung up feeling more alone than ever. She wondered if her family truly believed she was a lost cause, just another old woman clinging to the past. That night, she found herself scrolling back to the Musk videos again, as if searching for a lifeline. One quote stopped her cold: "The first step is to decide that you want to try. The second step is to refuse to quit." She whispered the words aloud, letting them fill the empty room. If Elon Musk could face the world's doubts and push through failures at any age, maybe she could find a way to do the same. The next morning, Mary woke early, the words still echoing. She knew she had to act, even if the steps were small and uncertain. She pulled on her old walking shoes and stepped outside, the cold air biting at her cheeks. Each step was heavy, each breath labored, but she kept going. The world felt vast and indifferent, but for the first time in a long time, she felt a flicker of determination. Back inside, she jotted down her thoughts in the notebook she'd dusted off weeks earlier. The battle was far from over, but the war inside her was shifting. She was beginning to believe she might still have a place in this world. The question was no longer if she was too old to matter, but how she would prove them all wrong. Every evening after that, Mary returned to her walk, pushing against the pain and doubt. She shared snippets of her journey in an online group she found, filled with others her age who were also seeking purpose. Some responded with encouragement, others with skepticism, but Mary welcomed it all. It was a reminder that she was alive, that her voice still counted. Slowly, the inner war began to shift from battle to balance. She wasn't winning every day, but she was learning to fight with kindness, for herself, for the woman she once was, and the woman she was becoming. The journey was just beginning, but Mary was ready to face whatever came next. Elon Musk's words had sparked something inside her, a flame she thought was extinguished. And now, she was determined to keep it burning, no matter what. The next morning, Mary woke with a strange mix of fear and excitement swirling inside her. The night had been restless, her mind racing with possibilities she hadn't dared to consider before. Elon Musk's words kept playing on repeat: "The first step is to decide that you want to try. The second step is to refuse to quit." What if that was the secret? What if change didn't have to be some grand, impossible leap but simply a small, bold choice, one step forward against all odds? Mary sat at the kitchen table, the morning light spilling across the scattered pages of her old notebook. She read through the scribbled dreams she had set aside so many years ago, the stories she'd meant to write, the hopes she'd held quietly in her heart. The ache for purpose was no longer just a dull throb, it was a fierce call to action. But where to begin? She wasn't a young woman anymore, with endless energy or time. She was a grandmother with creaky knees and a quiet house that echoed with memories. Then she remembered something Elon had said in one interview: start with something simple. Build momentum. Don't let fear stop you. Mary decided that her one thing would be something tangible, something she could control, a way to reclaim her voice. She pulled out her old laptop, its keys worn but still familiar, and opened a blank document. The cursor blinked at her like a challenge. She typed slowly at first, the words stumbling awkwardly but gaining strength with every sentence. She would start a blog, a place to share her stories, her struggles, and her small victories. Maybe it would help others like her who felt invisible and forgotten. The idea of putting herself out there was terrifying. What if no one read it? What if they laughed or ignored her? But the spark that Elon's words had lit inside her was stronger than her doubts. She hit publish on her first post, titled "Too Old to Matter." Think again. It was raw and honest, filled with memories of her nursing days, her regrets, and her newfound determination to fight back against the silence of age. To her surprise, the response was immediate. Comments trickled in, some from strangers who shared their own stories, others from younger readers who found inspiration in her courage. Mary felt a warmth she hadn't known in years, a sense of connection and purpose. Encouraged, she made a routine of writing every morning, capturing her thoughts and experiences like a lifeline thrown across the digital void. But the journey was not without setbacks. Some days, the pain in her knees was so bad she could barely walk to the mailbox, let alone write a post. Some nights, the loneliness crept back in, whispering that she was fooling herself. Her daughter Emily remained distant, skeptical of Mary's online hobby. "Mom, I worry you're just wasting your time. Why not focus on the things you enjoy now?" Mary swallowed the hurt and replied, "Because this is what makes me feel alive." She began to rebuild relationships too, cautiously reaching out to old friends she had lost touch with. The messages were hesitant at first, but soon they blossomed into conversations filled with shared memories and new hopes. One afternoon, while clearing out the garage, Mary found a box filled with supplies she'd once used for painting and crafts. An idea sparked: why not create something tangible to go along with her writing? She started small, painting simple canvases with scenes from her childhood town and moments from her nursing career. She posted photos of her art on her blog, inviting readers to see the world through her eyes. The feedback was overwhelming. People told her they felt inspired to pursue their own long-forgotten passions. Mary realized her one thing was multiplying, creating ripples of change far beyond what she had imagined. Her walks became longer and more purposeful. She pushed against the physical limits, fueled by the growing fire inside her. Each step was a victory, a testament to her refusal to be defined by age or pain. One day, an unexpected message popped up in her inbox: a woman named Grace, who had read Mary's blog and shared her story with a local newspaper. Grace wanted to meet Mary and write a feature about her journey. Mary was nervous but agreed. The article was published a week later, sharing Mary's story with the wider community. Suddenly, she was no longer invisible. Calls came from neighbors, old friends, even former patients who remembered her kindness and dedication. The world that had once dismissed her was starting to see her again. But the real breakthrough came when Emily called unexpectedly after reading the article. Her voice was softer, more open. "Mom, I didn't realize how much you were struggling, and how strong you still are. Maybe I've been wrong." Tears welled up in Mary's eyes. The gap she had feared was slowly closing, bridged by honesty and courage. Mary realized that the small choice she had made, to start writing, to keep moving, to believe, was transforming not just her life but the lives of those around her. She was reclaiming her story, piece by piece. Elon Musk's example had been the spark, but the fire was hers to keep burning. The journey ahead was still uncertain, filled with challenges and doubts. But Mary knew one thing for sure: she would no longer wait for permission to matter. She was creating her own path, one bold step at a time. Mary sat at her desk, staring at the glow of her laptop screen, the words she had written flooding her with a strange mix of hope and vulnerability. The blog she started as a quiet rebellion against invisibility had grown into something she never expected: a small community of readers who resonated with her story, who saw in her struggle a reflection of their own. That morning, she received an email that made her hands tremble. It was from Jack, her son. He hadn't spoken to her in nearly 3 years, their relationship strained by distance and misunderstandings. His message was short but filled with meaning: "Mom, I read your story. I'm proud of you. Can we talk?" Mary reread the words over and over, disbelief and joy swirling together. The son she thought she'd lost was reaching out. She felt tears burn behind her eyes, not just for the connection rekindled but for the years lost to silence and fear. Their conversation that evening was long and raw. They spoke of pain, regret, and the deep desire to heal. Mary listened as Jack shared his struggles, his own battles with feeling adrift in a world that seemed to move too fast. She shared her journey, the fears she fought every day to overcome. For the first time in years, Mary felt seen and heard by her own child. It was a breakthrough that no blog post or article could have promised. That same week, the local newspaper followed up on the feature story with an invitation for Mary to speak at a community event focused on aging and resilience. Standing before a crowd of faces, some skeptical, some curious, Mary felt a surge of nerves. But she remembered Elon Musk's fearless insistence to push through fear and keep going despite the odds. She spoke from her heart about her journey, the pain of loss, the fight against invisibility, the courage it took to start again. She talked about the power of small choices and the refusal to be defined by age or circumstance. When she finished, the room erupted in applause, some standing, others wiping away tears. Mary realized that her story had moved beyond her own life, it was touching others, inspiring hope where there had been despair. In the days that followed, messages poured in, from seniors who felt encouraged to chase their own dreams, from family members who wanted to better understand and support their aging loved ones. Mary's blog gained followers rapidly, her simple posts resonating like a beacon. One comment stood out, "If Mary can do it at 68, maybe I can too." She smiled, feeling the truth of those words ripple through her. But the breakthrough wasn't just external. Physically, Mary found herself growing stronger. Her daily walks became more than just exercise, they were acts of defiance against the limitations she had accepted for too long. She began to explore new hobbies, joining a local art class and reconnecting with the creative spirit she had buried under years of responsibility. The nights were still hard, filled with moments of doubt and loneliness, but Mary faced them differently now. She had built a fortress of purpose, one brick at a time, inspired by the resilience she saw in Elon Musk's story and the community she had found. One evening, as she sat by the window watching the sun set over her small town, Mary felt a profound sense of peace. She thought back to the moment when she first dared to believe she could change, that flicker of hope sparked by a man she had never met but whose words had become a lifeline. She realized that breaking through wasn't about erasing the past or pretending the struggles didn't exist. It was about embracing vulnerability, owning her story, and choosing to move forward with courage. Mary's journey was far from over, but she had crossed a threshold. She was no longer invisible. She was no longer waiting. She was a woman transformed, proof that it is never too late to matter, to change, to begin again. Mary sat quietly in her favorite chair, the soft afternoon light casting a golden glow through the window and warming the walls of her small living room. The house no longer felt like a quiet tomb of missed chances and faded dreams. Instead, it hummed with possibility and memory, each corner holding a story of transformation. She thought back on the long, difficult journey she had taken, the months of doubt, the battles with loneliness, the quiet victories that had slowly rebuilt her spirit. What had started as a desperate grasp for relevance had become something much deeper, a new legacy. It wasn't the legacy she had once imagined in her youth, filled with grand achievements and applause, but it was powerful in its own quiet way. She was no longer defined by what she had lost or what others said she couldn't do. She was defined by the fire she had rekindled within herself and the lives she had touched along the way. As she flipped through her blog posts, now collected into a personal journal, Mary realized that the words she had shared had become a lifeline for many, including herself. Readers from all walks of life reached out, telling her how her story had sparked courage in their own lives. Some wrote about reconnecting with estranged family members, others about rediscovering old passions or simply finding peace with aging. Mary smiled, knowing that her vulnerability had created a space for others to feel less alone. Her phone buzzed with a message from Emily. "Mom, I'm proud of you. Let's plan a visit soon." The simple words felt like a balm for old wounds, a sign that the fragile bridge they were rebuilding was strong enough to hold them both. Mary understood now that legacy wasn't about perfection or leaving behind something grand for the world to remember. It was about connection, courage, and the willingness to keep growing no matter the years left ahead. She thought about Elon Musk, whose fearless mindset had lit her path. Like him, she had learned that age was not a barrier but a challenge to be met with passion and persistence. Life was not over at 68. It was simply a new beginning. Mary closed her journal and looked out the window, the world outside alive with possibility. She whispered to herself, "I was never too old. I was just waiting for permission to matter again." And now, she was giving herself that permission every day. Mary woke before dawn, the pale light filtering softly through the curtains. Her body ached less than it had months ago, but it was the shift in her spirit that truly woke her. She stretched slowly, savoring the quiet stillness before the day began. Today wasn't just any day, it was the day she would take her journey one step further. For years, Mary had lived in the shadows of "too late" and "too old," but now she saw those words for what they were, barriers built by fear and doubt, not by reality. Inspired by the courage she found in Elon Musk's relentless pursuit of bold dreams, Mary was ready to challenge the next level of her own limitations. She brewed a cup of coffee and sat down at her desk, reviewing her blog posts and notes. She had been sharing her story, inspiring others, and rebuilding fractured relationships, but there was a new hunger inside her, a need to create something tangible, to leave a lasting mark beyond words. The idea came to her in a flash. To organize a local community group for seniors who wanted to reinvent themselves, to share skills, stories, and support. It would be a space for connection, creativity, and courage, a place where people could be seen and heard, no matter their age. Mary began drafting plans, reaching out to neighbors and local centers. She felt the familiar nervous flutter but also a steady pulse of determination. As the sun rose higher, she stepped outside, feeling the cool morning air on her face. Walking the familiar streets with purpose, she smiled at passers-by and imagined the possibilities waiting to unfold. Later that week, at the community center, Mary stood nervously before a room filled with curious faces, some skeptical, some hopeful. She shared her story, the struggles and breakthroughs, and invited others to join her on a path of rediscovery and empowerment. The energy in the room shifted. Stories began to flow, tales of lost dreams, hidden talents, and unspoken fears. Mary listened, feeling a deep connection with each person. The group became a sanctuary, a living testament to resilience. In the weeks that followed, they painted, wrote, learned new skills, and supported one another through setbacks and triumphs. Mary's own life blossomed alongside theirs. She found joy in mentoring, in seeing others take the spark she had kindled and turn it into a blazing fire of purpose. One afternoon, as she walked home from a meeting, Mary stopped by the bench where she had once felt invisible and forgotten. Now, it was a symbol of her journey, a place of reflection and renewal. She sat quietly, watching children play and neighbors chat, feeling fully alive. Elon Musk's words echoed softly in her mind, "When something is important enough, you do it even if the odds are not in your favor." Mary knew the odds might always be stacked against her, but she no longer feared them. She had learned to trust herself, to believe in the power of change at any age. The new day had dawned, not just outside her window but within her soul. And with it came the promise of endless possibilities. Despite the new purpose that filled her days, Mary found that doubt still crept in during the quiet moments. Some mornings, the old voice whispered sharply, "Who do you think you are? You're too old for this. Why bother?" The shadows of fear and insecurity had not vanished. They had only grown quieter, waiting for a chance to return. After the success of her community group's first meetings, Mary began to question whether she was enough, that her efforts truly mattered. Her daughter Emily still hadn't fully embraced the changes Mary was making, often expressing concern that Mary was pushing herself too hard. "Mom, you have to be realistic," Emily would say, her voice tinged with worry. "I just don't want you to get hurt or disappointed." Mary loved her daughter deeply, but the tension between them weighed heavily on her heart. At night, when the house was silent, Mary would sometimes stare at her laptop screen, hesitating to write the next blog post. What if no one cared? What if her story was just noise in a world that had moved on? One afternoon, feeling overwhelmed, Mary sought refuge in the small town library. As she browsed the shelves, a familiar voice in her head returned, Elon Musk's relentless challenge to push through fear and doubt. She recalled his refusal to accept limits, his willingness to risk failure for the chance at something extraordinary. Inspired, Mary opened her notebook and began to write, not just her story, but her fears, her questions, her moments of weakness. Writing became a catharsis, a way to face the doubts head-on instead of hiding from them. Sharing these raw emotions on her blog was terrifying, but the response was immediate and heartfelt. Readers reached out with their own stories of fear and resilience, creating a virtual community of strength and understanding. One reader wrote, "Your honesty makes me feel brave enough to face my own doubts." Another said, "I thought I was alone in this struggle. Thank you for showing me I'm not." These connections reminded Mary that doubt was not a sign of failure but a part of the human experience, something to be acknowledged, not feared. At a group meeting, Mary shared her struggles openly for the first time. The room filled with nods and shared experiences. She realized she wasn't alone, everyone carried their own burdens of uncertainty. Together, they created a space where fear could be spoken about without shame, where courage wasn't the absence of doubt but the choice to act despite it. Mary's relationship with Emily slowly began to heal as well. Emily saw her mother's vulnerability and strength intertwined and started to understand the depth of Mary's transformation. One evening, Emily hugged her tightly and said, "I'm proud of you, Mom. Keep going." That simple acceptance lifted a weight Mary hadn't realized she'd been carrying. Mary learned that facing doubts was not a one-time battle but an ongoing journey. Each time fear arose, she met it with the same boldness Elon embodied, pushing forward, fueled by purpose rather than paralyzed by uncertainty. The doubts remained, but they no longer defined her. Instead, they became signposts on a path of growth and resilience, markers of a life reclaimed and fiercely lived. Mary hadn't realized how much the years of silence had weighed on her until the day she decided to reach out. The phone sat heavy in her hand, its familiar shape a reminder of countless missed calls and unanswered messages. The thought of hearing a voice she hadn't spoken to in years was both terrifying and exhilarating. She dialed slowly, heart pounding. When the line connected, her son Jack's voice greeted her, tentative, cautious, yet unmistakably warm. "Hi, Mom," he said. That simple greeting cracked the walls built by years of distance and misunderstanding. Over the next hour, they talked about everything and nothing, shared memories, the struggles that had kept them apart, and the hopes they still held. Mary listened as Jack described his own feelings of being lost in a world that seemed to demand constant reinvention, the same way she had felt. This call wasn't the end of their story but the beginning of a fragile new chapter. Encouraged, Mary began reaching out to others she had drifted away from, old friends, distant relatives, even former colleagues. Each call was a small step, sometimes met with surprise, sometimes with joy. A lunch with her best friend Susan reignited laughter and stories that hadn't been spoken aloud in decades. A message to an estranged niece opened a door to shared family history and new understanding. Through these reconnections, Mary found not only forgiveness but also a renewed sense of belonging. The community she was building through her blog and local group mirrored the reconnections in her personal life. Each thread woven back into the fabric of her relationship strengthened the tapestry of her identity. She realized that age had not erased her capacity to love, to grow, or to heal old wounds. One afternoon, Emily surprised Mary with a visit. The two spent hours talking, not just as mother and daughter but as two women learning to understand each other anew. Emily confessed her fears about aging and change, and Mary shared her own vulnerabilities. Their conversation bridged the gap of years and misunderstandings, planting seeds for a deeper bond. Mary also found healing in volunteering at the community center, helping others navigate their own journeys of reinvention. The gratitude and resilience she witnessed fueled her own transformation. In the quiet moments, Mary reflected on how far she had come, from isolation to connection, from silence to shared stories. Elon Musk's example had shown her that change was possible at any stage, and she was living proof. The rekindling of relationships wasn't just about nostalgia. It was about reclaiming her place in the world, rewriting the narrative of what it meant to age. Mary knew there would still be challenges ahead, but with each connection renewed, she felt stronger and more hopeful. The past was not erased, but it was no longer a chain, it was a foundation. As the sun set over her town, Mary felt a deep peace settle in her heart. She was surrounded by the warmth of family, friends, and community. Her legacy was no longer a distant dream but a vibrant, living reality. And for the first time in a long time, she truly believed in the promise of tomorrow. Mary stood in front of the old wooden chest that sat at the foot of her bed, its surface scratched and faded by time. It was a relic from her younger days, filled with letters, photographs, and mementos she hadn't looked at in years. For decades, this chest had been a silent witness to the story of her life, the joys, the heartbreaks, the dreams deferred and sometimes forgotten. Today, she was ready to face it. Opening the lid slowly, a wave of memories washed over her. There were letters from friends who had drifted away, notes from a husband long gone, and snapshots of a younger Mary full of hope and promise. She fingered a faded photo of herself at 25, standing on a cliff overlooking the ocean, her face bright with ambition. The weight of regret pressed down, what might have been, if life had gone differently. But as Mary sifted through the contents, she realized something profound. The past was not a prison but a chapter. A part of her story that had shaped her, yes, but did not have to define her future. Inspired by the lessons she had learned through her own transformation, and by Elon Musk's fearless refusal to be limited by past failures, Mary began the process of releasing what no longer served her. She set aside the letters filled with bitterness, the photographs that anchored her to pain, and the notes that spoke of missed chances. Instead, she kept those that reminded her of resilience, love, and moments of joy. This act of sorting was more than physical, it was deeply symbolic. Mary was breaking free from the past's hold, reclaiming her power to choose how her story would continue. In the weeks that followed, Mary found herself more present, less weighed down by old wounds. She began journaling daily, not just about her fears and hopes but about forgiveness, of herself and others. This forgiveness was not about forgetting or excusing pain but about freeing herself to move forward. Mary also made peace with the losses she carried. She visited the graves of loved ones, speaking aloud the words she had held inside for so long. These moments of quiet conversation beneath the sky felt like a benediction, a letting go and a blessing for what lay ahead. Her community group embraced this theme of release and renewal as well. Together, they shared stories of burdens lifted and fresh starts. Mary encouraged members to write letters they would never send, to symbolize the act of saying goodbye to old hurts. The power of this collective healing was palpable, filling the room with a sense of hope and lightness. In her own life, Mary took bold steps to embody this freedom. She enrolled in classes she had long dreamed of taking, traveled to places she had only read about, and reconnected with passions once buried. With each choice, she felt the shackles of the past loosen, replaced by a growing sense of possibility. The journey was not without setbacks, moments when old fears resurfaced or when the weight of years felt heavy. But Mary met these moments with the same courage that had carried her through the early days of transformation, knowing that growth was not linear but a winding path. One evening, as she watched the sunset paint the sky in hues of pink and gold, Mary reflected on how far she had come. The past was still part of her, but it no longer controlled her. She was the author of her story now, writing new chapters filled with purpose, connection, and courage. In that quiet moment, Mary whispered to herself, "I am free." And with those words, she felt the truth settle deep within her, a truth that age was not an ending but a gateway to a life reborn. Mary woke early, the morning light filtering softly through her curtains, illuminating the small room filled with the faint scent of coffee and old books. She had come a long way from the days when each sunrise felt like a reminder of what she had lost. Now, the dawn was a promise, a canvas waiting to be painted with new meaning. Purpose had become her compass, guiding her through the twists and turns of reinvention. It wasn't a grand mission or a monumental achievement that defined it, but the simple, steady commitment to keep moving forward. Inspired by Elon Musk's relentless pursuit of goals that many deemed impossible, Mary found strength in setting her own intentions, small acts of courage that added up to profound change. Today, she planned to visit the community center early, to prepare for a workshop she was leading on rediscovering passion later in life. The room would fill with faces, each carrying their own stories of struggle and hope. Mary looked forward to seeing the spark in their eyes, the same spark that had been rekindled within her. As she dressed, she reflected on how purpose had transformed her sense of self. Where once she felt invisible and irrelevant, she now felt vital and connected. Purpose had given her a reason to rise each day, to challenge the limitations imposed by age and circumstance. It had become the fire that fueled her journey. At the center, Mary greeted attendees with a warm smile, feeling the familiar hum of energy as people gathered. The workshop began with stories, her own and theirs, shared openly in a circle of trust. She encouraged them to explore what truly mattered, to identify passions long forgotten or unexplored. The exercises sparked laughter, tears, and quiet moments of reflection. Mary noticed how purpose created a ripple effect, inspiring people to dream beyond the confines of too old or too late. After the session, several participants approached Mary with gratitude and stories of renewed motivation. One man, George, shared how he had always wanted to paint but thought it was a frivolous dream at 72. Now, he was signing up for art classes. Another woman, Linda, spoke about reconnecting with her grandchildren through storytelling, a gift she had neglected in her busy life. Mary realized that purpose wasn't just about individual fulfillment, it was a bridge connecting people, healing wounds, and building community. The days that followed were filled with moments of growth. Both hers and others. Mary found herself more energized, more engaged, more alive. Purpose had given her a new lens through which to see the world, a lens of possibility rather than limitation. Yet, she also understood that purpose was not a fixed destination but a living, evolving force. It required tending, nurturing, and sometimes reimagining. Inspired again by Elon Musk's example of pivoting and adapting in the face of challenges, Mary embraced change as part of her path. One afternoon, she received an invitation to speak at a regional conference on aging and innovation. The opportunity was both thrilling and daunting. Public speaking had once been a source of anxiety, but Mary felt ready to share her journey on a larger stage. Preparing her talk, she focused on the theme of purpose, the transformative power it held to redefine aging and ignite courage. The day of the conference arrived, and Mary stood before an audience that included seniors, caregivers, and professionals. Her voice trembled at first, but as she spoke, the room grew still, captivated by her honesty and passion. She shared her story, the despair, the doubts, the breakthroughs, and how purpose had been her anchor. When she finished, the applause was warm and sustained. Mary saw tears in the eyes of some attendees, smiles of recognition in others. She knew that her message had landed, that she was no longer just telling her story but giving others permission to claim their own. Back in her quiet home that evening, Mary sat by the window, reflecting on the journey. Purpose had carried her through the darkest nights and brightest days. It had transformed fear into fuel and silence into song. She thought of Elon Musk again, his fearless drive, his willingness to take risks despite uncertainty. Mary realized that purpose was not just about achieving goals but about living fully, embracing every moment with intention and heart. As the stars emerged in the night sky, Mary whispered softly, "This is only the beginning." And with that, she felt a deep, unshakable peace, a knowledge that her life, no matter the years behind or ahead, mattered profoundly. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Mary sat on the porch swing, the cool evening breeze rustling the leaves of the maple tree nearby. Change had become a constant companion in her life, sometimes gentle, other times fierce. She had learned that resisting it only deepened the pain, while embracing it opened doors she never knew existed. Inspired by Elon Musk's unyielding appetite for innovation and transformation, Mary approached each day ready to meet the unknown with curiosity instead of fear. The community group she led was evolving too. What began as a small circle of seniors looking to reconnect and rediscover had grown into a vibrant hub of creativity and support. They hosted workshops, art shows, and even a podcast sharing stories of reinvention. Mary marveled at the energy and resilience she witnessed in the faces of her friends, all of them learning to rewrite their own narratives. But change was not always easy. Sometimes, it meant confronting old habits and beliefs that clung like shadows. Mary found herself challenged by moments of doubt and discomfort, times when the familiar felt safer than the uncertain path ahead. One afternoon, as she prepared for a major presentation at a local senior center, nerves gnawed at her confidence. Would people listen? Would they care? The fears threatened to pull her back into old patterns of hesitation. That night, she turned to a documentary about Elon Musk, drawn to his unshakable resolve and vision for the future. Watching him describe his failures and setbacks with honesty and humor reminded Mary that change demanded courage, not the absence of fear but the choice to move forward despite it. Renewed, she practiced her presentation with determination. On the day of the event, Mary stood before an eager audience, ready to share her insights on embracing change at any age. She spoke of her journey, the struggles and triumphs, and the power of mindset to transform obstacles into opportunities. The room buzzed with energy, and afterwards, many approached her to share their own stories of change and renewal. These moments of connection fueled Mary's belief that transformation was contagious and deeply human. As weeks passed, Mary found herself embracing change beyond her public life. She experimented with new hobbies, from digital photography to learning a musical instrument. Each new skill was a reminder that growth was not confined to youth but flourished in every season of life. She even planned a trip to visit a city she had never been to, eager to experience new sights and cultures. Through it all, Mary noticed a shift within herself, a growing sense of freedom and joy that came from releasing expectations and embracing possibility. Change was no longer a threat but a dance partner guiding her toward a fuller life. She also saw this transformation reflected in her relationships. Friends and family who had once worried about her restless spirit now admired her zest for life. Emily, in particular, expressed pride in her mother's courage to keep evolving. One evening, Mary and Emily sat together on the porch, watching the stars emerge. They talked openly about the challenges and blessings of change, finding comfort in their shared journey. Mary realized that embracing change was not just about adapting to the world but about shaping it through intention and heart. In the quiet moments, she often reflected on Elon Musk's fearless spirit, a reminder that the willingness to take risks and innovate was not limited by age or circumstance. With each new day, Mary chose to step boldly into the unknown, carrying with her the lessons of the past and the promise of the future. As the night deepened, Mary whispered to the stars, "I am ready." And in that readiness, she found a profound peace, the peace of a life fully embraced and ever unfolding. Mary's life had transformed in ways she never imagined possible, yet the most powerful change came from the people she surrounded herself with. She had discovered that true strength did not lie in solitary endurance but in the connections that buoyed her spirit and expanded her horizons. Elon Musk's journey had been marked by collaboration, teamwork, and the boldness to rely on others while daring to lead. Inspired by this example, Mary deepened her commitment to community, not just the group she had started, but a broader circle of relationships that gave her life new meaning. Her home became a hub of activity, a place where neighbors, friends, and fellow seekers gathered to share ideas, meals, and stories. The living room echoed with laughter and conversation, a stark contrast to the silence that had once filled the house. Mary reveled in the richness of these connections, feeling energized and supported. The community group blossomed into something far greater than she had anticipated. Members began initiating their own projects, writing clubs, gardening circles, volunteer teams, each fueled by the collective energy Mary had helped ignite. Together, they tackled challenges that once seemed insurmountable: loneliness, invisibility, fear of aging. Through shared experiences, they built a network of encouragement and empowerment that touched every corner of their lives. Mary also found unexpected strength in giving back. She volunteered at the local food pantry and mentored younger women navigating their own life transitions. These acts of service grounded her, reminding her that purpose and community were intertwined. The gratitude she received was a balm for old wounds, and the impact she made renewed her sense of worth. One evening, the group organized a special event, a celebration of stories. Members took turns sharing pivotal moments of transformation, their voices weaving a tapestry of hope and resilience. Mary spoke last, her words carrying the weight and lightness of a journey hard won. She told of the moment she had believed she was too old to matter, and how she had chosen to prove that belief wrong. The room was silent, then erupted in applause and tears. This shared vulnerability created bonds that transcended age and circumstance, uniting them in a powerful community of belonging. Mary's relationship with her family grew stronger as well. Emily became more involved in the group's activities, bringing her own energy and perspective. Jack, once distant, began visiting regularly, drawn by the warmth and purpose he saw in his mother's world. These renewed family ties were not perfect, but they were real and alive. Mary understood that community was not about perfection but about showing up for one another, imperfect, hopeful, determined. In moments of challenge, Mary leaned on her community and found courage. When health issues arose, friends rallied to provide support, reminding her she was not alone. When doubts crept in, a single encouraging message or gesture was enough to reignite her resolve. The power of community was not just in its presence but in its ability to transform fear into strength, isolation into connection. As Mary looked around at the faces gathered in her home, she felt a profound gratitude. These people had become her chosen family, a tribe of warriors reclaiming their stories and redefining what it meant to grow older. Inspired by Elon Musk's belief that no one succeeds alone, Mary embraced this truth fully. Strength was found not in isolation but in unity, and in that unity, she had found her truest self. One night, as the group dispersed and the house grew quiet, Mary sat alone on the porch, the stars shining overhead. She whispered a simple prayer of thanks. For the past that had shaped her, the present that sustained her, and the future she was building alongside those she loved. The journey was far from over, but Mary was no longer afraid. With the strength of her community behind her and purpose lighting her way, she was ready for whatever lay ahead. Doubt was a shadow that had lurked at the edges of Mary's journey, whispering questions she didn't always want to hear. Was she really capable of change at her age? Would anyone truly care about the new life she was building? Could she keep going when the weight of years and setbacks pressed down? These doubts were familiar companions, sometimes subtle, sometimes overwhelming. Mary had learned to recognize them, to meet them without surrender. Inspired by Elon Musk's example of relentless perseverance, his willingness to face failure head-on and keep pushing forward, Mary understood that doubt was not a sign to stop but a call to dig deeper. One morning, after a restless night filled with anxious thoughts, Mary sat quietly in her favorite chair with a cup of tea. She acknowledged the doubts swirling in her mind but refused to let them define her. Instead, she turned to the journal she had kept since her transformation began. Reading her own words, stories of small victories, moments of clarity, and acts of courage, reminded her that progress was real and within her reach. Mary decided to challenge her doubts directly. She set a goal to complete a project she had started years ago, writing a memoir to share her story of reinvention. The task felt daunting. Could she capture decades of experience in a way that would inspire others? The fear of failure lurked close, but Mary remembered Elon Musk's words about starting before you're ready, about the power of iteration and learning through doing. She committed to writing a page a day, allowing imperfection and vulnerability to be part of the process. As she wrote, Mary confronted memories both painful and joyful. The act of putting words on paper became a form of healing and empowerment. Each sentence was a step toward silencing doubt and reclaiming her voice. Alongside her writing, Mary practiced affirmations that reinforced her worth and potential. I am enough, she whispered each morning. I am capable of change. My story matters. These mantras, simple yet powerful, gradually reshaped her internal dialogue. When old doubts surfaced, Mary met them with compassion rather than judgment, understanding that self-doubt was part of being human but did not have to control her. The community she had built also played a vital role in overcoming doubt. Friends offered encouragement, shared their own struggles, and celebrated Mary's progress. Their belief in her bolstered her belief in herself. One evening, after sharing a rough draft of her memoir at a group meeting, Mary received heartfelt feedback and support that filled her with renewed confidence. There were still difficult days when doubt tried to creep back in, especially when progress seemed slow or obstacles arose. But Mary had learned to lean into discomfort, to see doubt as a signal to pause, reflect, and then press forward with intention. She remembered how Elon Musk faced seemingly insurmountable challenges, rocket explosions, financial crises, public skepticism, yet kept moving with a bold vision. Inspired by this resilience, Mary recommitted to her path with renewed vigor. The act of overcoming doubt became a practice, a daily choice to believe in possibility despite fear. It was not about being fearless but about courageously choosing to act in spite of fear. Mary's memoir grew, page by page, a testament to her transformation and the power of persistence. When she finally shared the finished manuscript with her family and community, the response was overwhelmingly positive. People connected with her honesty and strength, and some even shared their own stories of doubt and triumph. Mary realized that by facing her doubts openly, she had created a space for others to do the same. In moments of quiet reflection, Mary felt a deep gratitude for the journey, its challenges and rewards. Doubt had been a harsh teacher but also a catalyst for growth. She understood that embracing doubt as part of the human experience was essential to living authentically and courageously. As the sun set on another day, Mary sat on her porch, the sky painted with shades of orange and purple. She whispered to herself, "I am more than my doubts." And in that declaration, she felt the boundless strength of a woman who had chosen to rise again and again, no matter what. Mary stood in her garage, surrounded by dusty boxes and forgotten tools, a place that once held dreams she thought had slipped away with time. As a younger woman, she had longed to build and create, but life's demands and doubts had buried those ambitions beneath layers of routine and regret. Now, at 71, she was ready to rekindle those dreams. The spark had come unexpectedly, inspired by Elon Musk's fearless pursuit of innovation even when the odds seemed insurmountable. Watching his interviews and reading about his ventures reignited something deep inside Mary, a belief that it was never too late to build, to invent, to make something new. She began by clearing the clutter, opening boxes filled with sketches and notes from decades ago. There were plans for woodworking projects, ideas for small inventions, and even a half-finished model airplane. Each artifact was a reminder of a younger Mary who had dared to imagine a future beyond the ordinary. As she cleaned, Mary felt a mixture of nostalgia and excitement. The garage was transforming from a dusty storage space into a workshop of possibility. She set up a workbench, arranged her tools, and created a small corner dedicated to her projects. The first days were filled with trial and error. Her hands, once quick and steady, now moved more slowly, and some tasks required patience she had not needed before. Yet, with each mistake and small success, Mary rediscovered a joy she hadn't felt in years. The act of creating became a meditation, a way to connect with herself and the world around her. Word spread among her community about Mary's new venture, and soon friends began stopping by to offer encouragement, advice, and even help. Her daughter Emily, initially skeptical, grew inspired by her mother's determination and joined in, eager to learn and support. Together, they worked on projects that ranged from simple birdhouses to intricate mechanical models. Mary's confidence blossomed, and so did her vision. She began dreaming bigger, perhaps starting a small business selling handcrafted items or teaching workshops to share her skills with others. The garage had become a symbol of rebirth, a place where age was no barrier but a badge of honor. Yet, Rekindling dreams also brought moments of doubt and fear. Would she be able to complete her projects? Would anyone care about what she made? Could she overcome the physical limitations that came with aging? In these moments, Mary recalled Elon Musk's relentless spirit, the willingness to fail, to learn, and to keep moving forward. His example gave her permission to embrace imperfection and persist. She reminded herself that the journey was just as important as the destination. As months passed, Mary's projects multiplied, each one a testament to her resilience and creativity. She hosted a small open house in her garage, inviting neighbors and friends to see her work and hear her story. The event was a celebration of possibility, aging, and the courage to follow one's passions regardless of the years behind. Mary's story resonated deeply, inspiring others to dust off their own forgotten dreams and take first steps toward fulfillment. Encouraged by this response, Mary reached out to a local community center to propose a workshop on creative reinvention for seniors. The center welcomed the idea, recognizing the transformative power of creativity to boost confidence, connection, and joy. Mary's workshops became a regular event, drawing a diverse group eager to explore their talents and aspirations. Through teaching, Mary discovered new purpose and connection, reinforcing her belief that dreams could be rekindled and shared at any age. One afternoon, as she assembled a delicate wooden clock, Mary reflected on her journey. The clock's steady ticking echoed the rhythm of her life, a life marked by challenges, change, and now, vibrant creativity. She understood that rekindling dreams was not about chasing youth but about embracing the fullness of experience and using it to create something meaningful. Mary's story became a beacon, reminding everyone that the fire of passion could burn brightly no matter how many years had passed. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over her workshop, Mary smiled. She whispered softly, "It's never too late." And in those words, she held the promise of a life forever young in spirit and purpose. Mary never imagined that alongside rekindling her dreams and building new connections, she would also confront the ghosts of her past, those old wounds she had tucked away for years, thinking time might heal them on its own. But healing, she discovered, required intention and courage. The journey was not just about creating new memories or achievements, it was about facing the pain she had carried silently. Inspired by Elon Musk's boldness to tackle challenges head-on, Mary decided it was time to seek reconciliation, not only with others but within herself. She started with the hardest relationship of all, with her estranged sister, Linda. They had drifted apart decades ago, tangled in misunderstandings and regrets that neither had voiced for years. The silence between them had become a chasm, and Mary had long assumed the bridge was too broken to rebuild. Yet, as Mary worked on her memoir and reflected deeply on her life, she realized that carrying bitterness was a burden she no longer wanted to bear. She reached out to Linda with a simple letter, an olive branch offering peace. The wait for a reply felt endless, filled with uncertainty and hope. When Linda finally responded, her words were cautious but open. They agreed to meet at a quiet cafe, a neutral place where they could speak honestly. The reunion was awkward at first, emotions raw and unsteady. Yet, as they shared their stories, the misunderstandings, the pain, the loneliness, a fragile connection began to form. Tears were shed, apologies exchanged, and slowly, walls began to crumble. Mary felt a deep relief, as if a heavy weight had lifted from her heart. Healing old wounds also meant forgiving herself. For years, Mary had carried guilt over past choices, relationships that faltered, opportunities missed, moments she wished she could undo. The process was neither quick nor easy, but through journaling and therapy, she learned to show herself compassion. She understood that mistakes were part of being human, and that forgiveness was a gift she deserved. This inner healing opened new doors. Mary found herself more open to love and connection, less burdened by fear and regret. She reconnected with old friends she had lost touch with, reaching out with honesty and vulnerability. Some relationships rekindled, others gently faded, but all contributed to her renewed sense of belonging. Mary's community group embraced the theme of healing, incorporating sessions on emotional wellness and forgiveness. These gatherings became safe spaces where members shared stories of loss and recovery, finding strength in shared vulnerability. Inspired by Elon Musk's approach to learning from failure and moving forward, Mary framed her healing not as an end but as a new beginning. She realized that wounds, once healed, could become sources of wisdom and empathy. The process also strengthened her bond with Emily. Together, they navigated conversations about family history, pain, and hope. Emily expressed gratitude for her mother's courage, and Mary felt pride in the woman her daughter was becoming. One afternoon, as Mary and Linda walked through a local park, they spoke of the future, plans for visits, shared projects, and simply being present for one another. Mary felt gratitude for the journey that had brought them back together, understanding that healing was a continuous, evolving process. As she sat on her porch that evening, watching the sunset paint the sky, Mary felt a deep peace. The wounds that once seemed permanent were now threads woven into the fabric of her resilience. She whispered to herself, "I am whole." And in that truth, Mary embraced the freedom that comes with healing, freedom to live fully, love openly, and move forward with an open heart. Mary awoke to the soft light filtering through the curtains, a quiet reminder that each day held new possibilities. The journey she had traveled, from doubt and isolation to connection and healing, had brought her to a profound realization: purpose was not a destination but a living, breathing part of each moment. Inspired by Elon Musk's relentless drive to push boundaries and create meaning through action, Mary embraced purpose as her guiding star, a compass pointing toward fulfillment regardless of age or circumstance. Purpose, she discovered, was not about grand gestures or external validation but about the small, intentional acts that gave life depth and direction. It was in the laughter shared with friends, the patience shown to a struggling neighbor, the time spent nurturing her creative projects. Each act, no matter how modest, was a thread woven into a tapestry of meaning. Mary's community group, once a tentative gathering of seekers, had transformed into a vibrant network of individuals pursuing their unique purposes. They supported one another, celebrated achievements, and held space for setbacks. Purpose, they found, was contagious, a flame passed from one heart to another, lighting the way through life's uncertainties. Mary took on new roles within the group, mentoring newcomers and organizing events that highlighted the diverse talents and passions of their members. Her enthusiasm was infectious, inspiring others to step boldly into their own purposes. At home, Mary found joy in simple routines that grounded her sense of meaning. Morning walks became moments of gratitude and reflection. Time spent in her workshop was not just about creating objects but about crafting a life of intention. The act of teaching her daughter Emily new skills strengthened their bond and deepened Mary's sense of legacy. Yet, purpose was not without its challenges. There were days when physical fatigue or emotional overwhelm tested Mary's resolve. On such days, she leaned into the lessons gleaned from Elon Musk's resilience, the understanding that setbacks were part of any meaningful journey and that perseverance was the key to growth. She reminded herself that purpose was not perfection but persistence. One afternoon, Mary received an invitation to speak at a local conference on aging and innovation. The opportunity was both thrilling and daunting. Public speaking had never been easy, and the thought of addressing a large audience stirred old fears. But Mary recognized this moment as a chance to embody her purpose fully, to share her story and inspire others to embrace change and possibility. She prepared diligently, weaving together the threads of her journey into a compelling narrative. When the day arrived, Mary stood before the crowd, heart pounding but voice steady. She spoke of her struggles and triumphs, the doubts overcome, and the dreams rekindled. She shared how Elon Musk's example had sparked a fire within her, a fire that refused to be extinguished by age or circumstance. The audience responded with warmth and admiration, many moved to tears. Mary felt a profound connection with the listeners, a shared understanding that purpose was accessible to all who dared to claim it. After the speech, she was approached by individuals eager to learn more, to share their own journeys, and to join the community she had helped nurture. This outpouring of connection affirmed Mary's belief that purpose was a force that could transform lives and communities. Reflecting on the experience, Mary realized that embracing purpose was not about achieving a specific goal but about living authentically and courageously. It was about waking each day with intention, facing challenges with grace, and celebrating the simple joys that made life rich. As evening fell, Mary sat on her porch, the sky awash with stars. She thought of Elon Musk, not as a distant celebrity but as a symbol of the human capacity to dream boldly and act relentlessly. In her heart, she whispered, "Purpose is mine to claim." And in that quiet declaration, Mary felt the boundless freedom and fulfillment that come from living a life true to oneself. Mary had come a long way from the woman who once believed she was too old to matter. Yet, life had a way of testing even the strongest resolve. New challenges appeared, unexpected and sometimes daunting, reminding her that transformation was not a linear path but a continuous journey of growth and adaptation. Inspired by Elon Musk's willingness to embrace risk and uncertainty, Mary approached these challenges not as obstacles but as opportunities to learn and evolve. The first of these new trials came in the form of a health scare. A routine checkup revealed issues that required immediate attention. The doctor's words were serious, shaking Mary's confidence and stirring old fears of physical decline. For a moment, doubt crept in, threatening to unravel the progress she had made. But Mary remembered the lessons she had learned, that strength was not the absence of fear but the courage to move forward despite it. She committed to facing her health challenges proactively, working closely with her medical team and adopting lifestyle changes recommended for her well-being. Exercise, nutrition, and mindfulness became integral parts of her daily routine. Though the adjustments were difficult, Mary found empowerment in taking control of her health. The experience deepened her appreciation for the resilience of the human body and spirit. Alongside physical health, Mary encountered emotional challenges. A close friend moved away, leaving a void in her support network. The community she had helped build faced tensions as differences in opinions and priorities surfaced. Navigating these emotional complexities required patience, empathy, and a willingness to communicate openly. Mary facilitated conversations that encouraged listening and understanding, drawing on her experience with healing old wounds. She recognized that growth often involved discomfort but that such moments could lead to stronger, more authentic connections. Mary also faced the challenge of balancing her newfound purpose with practical responsibilities. Managing time and energy became a delicate dance, especially as she juggled family needs, community involvement, and personal projects. She learned to set boundaries, prioritize self-care, and ask for help when needed. These practices not only preserved her well-being but also modeled healthy habits for those around her. Through these trials, Mary's relationship with her daughter Emily deepened. Emily became both a source of support and inspiration, encouraging Mary to persevere and reminding her of the impact she was making. Their bond grew stronger as they navigated life's uncertainties together, sharing joys and sorrows with openness and love. In the midst of challenges, Mary found solace in nature. Daily walks through the nearby park offered moments of peace and reflection. The changing seasons mirrored her own journey, cycles of growth, shedding, and renewal. Observing the resilience of trees and wildlife, Mary drew strength and hope. Elon Musk's vision of pushing boundaries resonated deeply during these times. His ability to embrace failure as a stepping stone rather than a dead end inspired Mary to maintain a mindset of curiosity and persistence. She reframed setbacks as lessons, each one bringing her closer to her goals. One particularly difficult day, when frustration and fatigue threatened to overwhelm her, Mary revisited a quote from Musk that had become a mantra: "When something is important enough, you do it even if the odds are not in your favor." This reminder reignited her determination. She reached out to her community for support, and together, they devised solutions to challenges they faced collectively. Mary realized that facing new challenges was not a sign of weakness but a natural part of a vibrant, evolving life. Each obstacle was an invitation to deepen resilience, creativity, and connection. As she continued forward, Mary embraced uncertainty with courage, knowing that her journey was not about perfection but about showing up fully, day after day. Sitting on her porch one evening, the sky painted in hues of twilight, Mary felt a profound gratitude for the strength she had discovered within herself and in those around her. The challenges she faced no longer seemed insurmountable but integral threads in the rich tapestry of her life. With a steady heart, she whispered into the cooling air, "I am ready." And in that readiness, Mary found the freedom to face whatever lay ahead with hope and grace. Mary's transformation had begun as a personal journey, a quiet rebellion against the idea that age defined her worth or limited her possibilities. But as her story unfolded, it became clear that her experience held power far beyond herself. Inspired by Elon Musk's impact, not just as an innovator but as a catalyst for change, Mary embraced the role of a beacon, someone who could inspire others to believe in their own potential regardless of age. It started subtly. Friends and acquaintances began asking about her projects, her memoir, and how she managed to shift her mindset so profoundly. Her community group flourished, attracting new members eager to find their own spark. Mary found herself sought after for advice, encouragement, and even speaking engagements. Each interaction was a chance to share not just her successes but her struggles, the doubts, fears, and failures that had been part of her path. She spoke openly about the moments when she felt invisible or dismissed, the times when she questioned if change was possible, and the small choices that ultimately rekindled her spirit. Mary's honesty created connection. People saw themselves in her story and felt emboldened to start or continue their own journeys. She became a mentor and friend to many, offering guidance grounded in empathy and real experience. Recognizing the power of community, Mary worked with local organizations to develop programs that supported older adults in exploring creativity, entrepreneurship, and personal growth. She helped organize workshops, networking events, and support groups that fostered learning and connection. These initiatives provided safe spaces where people could share dreams, confront doubts, and celebrate progress together. One day, Mary received an email from a woman named Linda, who had attended one of her workshops. Linda wrote about feeling stuck and hopeless, convinced that her best years were behind her. But hearing Mary's story had ignited a spark of hope. She thanked Mary for showing her that transformation was possible at any age. Messages like these reinforced Mary's sense of purpose and fueled her commitment to inspire. Social media became another avenue for Mary's message. Hesitant at first, she began sharing reflections, photos of her projects, and snippets of her memoir online. The response was heartening, messages from people across the country, stories of their own struggles and triumphs, and words of gratitude. Mary's online presence grew into a supportive virtual community, bridging distances and amplifying voices often unheard. As her influence expanded, Mary remained grounded in humility and authenticity. She knew that inspiration was not about perfection but about showing up honestly and vulnerably. She often quoted Elon Musk's idea that failure is an option here. If things are not failing, you are not innovating enough. This mindset encouraged her followers to embrace their own imperfections and take bold steps forward. One highlight of Mary's journey was an invitation to speak at a national conference on aging and innovation. Standing before a diverse audience, Mary shared her story with passion and conviction. She spoke about breaking free from limiting beliefs, the importance of community, and the transformative power of purpose. Her words moved many, sparking conversations and new connections. After the event, Mary was approached by a young entrepreneur who told her how inspiring it was to see someone reinventing themselves with such courage and joy. Mary smiled, realizing that inspiration was a two-way street. She gave and received strength in equal measure. Back home, Mary continued nurturing her community and projects, always seeking new ways to uplift others. She organized volunteer opportunities that connected seniors with local schools, creating intergenerational bonds that enriched both groups. She collaborated with artists, educators, and activists to create programs celebrating aging as a time of creativity and impact. Through all these efforts, Mary understood that inspiring others was not about being a flawless role model but about being real, relatable, and resilient. Her story was a testament to the truth that it is never too late to matter, to grow, and to make a difference. On a quiet evening, as Mary reviewed messages from her online community, she felt a profound sense of fulfillment. The woman who once felt invisible was now a source of light for many. With a heart full of gratitude, she whispered, "Together, we rise." And in that collective spirit, Mary found the enduring power of inspiration. An endless flame passed from one soul to another, lighting the way for all who dare to believe. Mary sat quietly in her favorite chair, the soft hum of the evening settling around her like a gentle embrace. The years of transformation, the doubts, the healing, the bold steps into purpose, had brought her to this moment of reflection. She looked out the window at the familiar street where she had walked countless times, where neighbors waved and children played, where memories both sweet and painful lingered in the air. It was here, in this small town, that Mary had rewritten the story she once believed was written for her, a story of fading away, of being too old to matter. Now, she understood that her journey was a testament not just to her own resilience but to the boundless capacity within all people to reinvent, reclaim, and rise. Inspired by Elon Musk's relentless pursuit of innovation and refusal to accept limits, Mary had come to see her life as a series of new beginnings rather than endings. The legacy she was building was not defined by fame or fortune but by the lives touched, the hearts opened, and the communities strengthened. Her memoir, once a tentative project, had blossomed into a symbol of hope. Readers across the country reached out, sharing how her story had sparked change in their own lives. Mary felt humbled and honored to be part of a larger movement, a wave of older adults redefining what it meant to age with courage, creativity, and purpose. She smiled softly, remembering the early days of doubt and despair. The woman who had felt invisible and dismissed was now a beacon of light for many. The relationships she had mended, the friendships she had nurtured, and the new connections she had forged all formed the threads of her new legacy. Mary's daughter, Emily, had become her closest ally and partner in this journey. Together, they had created workshops, community projects, and outreach programs that celebrated aging as a time of strength and possibility. Emily often told Mary how proud she was, how her mother's courage had inspired her own path. This intergenerational bond was among Mary's greatest joys. On this evening, Mary opened a letter from a young woman named Sarah, who had attended one of the workshops Mary helped organize. Sarah wrote of her struggles with self-doubt and her newfound determination to pursue a creative career after years of hesitation. She thanked Mary for lighting a path forward, for showing that it was never too late to chase dreams. Such words filled Mary's heart with a deep, abiding peace. She understood that legacy was not about what one leaves behind in material wealth or accolades but about the ripple effects of courage and kindness, the seeds of hope planted in others' hearts. As Mary prepared for a speaking engagement at a local community center, she reflected on the words she would share, words not of boasting but of invitation. Invitation to anyone who felt lost, forgotten, or too old to change, that they were wrong, that their stories were still unfolding, that their time to matter was now. She remembered the moment that had sparked her own awakening, the quote from Elon Musk, the realization that boundaries were often self-imposed, and the choice to step beyond them. Mary hoped to pass that spark to others. The community gathered that evening was diverse, people of varying ages, backgrounds, and experiences. Mary spoke from her heart, weaving her journey with honesty and warmth. She emphasized the power of small, consistent choices and the importance of surrounding oneself with support and encouragement. The audience listened, captivated by her authenticity and resilience. After the talk, several attendees approached Mary to share their own stories and hopes. Among them was an elderly man who confessed he had given up on his passion for painting, convinced it was too late to start again. Mary smiled and encouraged him to pick up his brushes, to embrace the joy of creation without fear. She saw in his eyes the flicker of a dream reignited. Later, as Mary walked home under a sky full of stars, she felt a profound gratitude for the journey, every challenge, every breakthrough, every moment of vulnerability. She realized that legacy was not a final destination but a living, evolving force. A call to action and love that transcended time. In the quiet of the night, Mary whispered to herself, "I was never too old." I was just waiting for permission to matter again. And in that truth, she found freedom, the freedom to live fully, love deeply, and inspire endlessly. The new legacy she carried was not hers alone but belonged to all who dare to dream beyond limits, who choose hope over despair, who embrace the infinite possibilities of each new day. Mary closed her eyes with a smile, ready for whatever came next, knowing that her story, and the stories of countless others, would continue to light the way for generations to come. Mary stood at the edge of the pier, the cool breeze from the lake brushing against her face as the sun dipped toward the horizon. The sky was painted in streaks of orange and purple, a breathtaking reminder that endings often gave way to new beginnings. She took a deep breath, savoring the moment, feeling a profound sense of peace and possibility that had once seemed out of reach. Beyond the horizon, Mary saw more than just the fading light, she saw the vast expanse of life still waiting to be lived, explored, and transformed. The journey that had started with a single spark, a quote from Elon Musk challenging her to rethink what aging meant, had grown into a powerful adventure of self-discovery, resilience, and impact. Now, standing here, Mary understood that this was far from over. If anything, it was just the beginning of an even greater chapter. The challenges she had faced, the lessons she had learned, and the connections she had built had prepared her for whatever lay ahead. Fear no longer held her captive, instead, curiosity and courage fueled her steps forward. Mary reflected on the moments that had defined her transformation, the late nights writing her memoir, the early mornings walking through the park, the heartfelt conversations with her daughter Emily and the community members who had become like family. Each memory was a thread in the rich tapestry of her life, woven with strength and grace. Elon Musk's influence remained a subtle but powerful undercurrent in her story. His refusal to accept limits, his embrace of failure as a stepping stone, and his visionary mindset had shown Mary that age was not a boundary but a perspective. She recalled one of his interviews where he said, "Constantly think about how you could be doing things better and questioning yourself." That challenge had propelled Mary to keep growing, learning, and pushing beyond comfort zones. As the sun finally slipped below the horizon, Mary felt a renewed commitment to living fully and purposefully. She decided to embark on a new project, a podcast series dedicated to sharing stories of people who had reinvented themselves later in life. She envisioned a platform where voices often overlooked could be heard, where experiences could inspire, and where hope could flourish. With her daughter Emily's help, Mary began planning the podcast. They brainstormed guests, topics, and themes that reflected the vibrant tapestry of aging and transformation. The process was invigorating, filling Mary with excitement and anticipation. This project wasn't just about storytelling. It was about building a movement, creating a space for connection, empowerment, and radical possibility. Launching the podcast was no small feat. Mary faced technical hurdles, moments of self-doubt, and the steep learning curve of digital media. Yet, each obstacle was met with the same determination that had carried her through earlier chapters of her life. She embraced the discomfort of the new, knowing it was a sign of growth. The first episode featured a retired teacher who had started a community garden that brought neighbors together across generations. The conversation was warm, authentic, and filled with wisdom. Listeners responded enthusiastically, sharing their own stories and expressing gratitude for the platform. Encouraged, Mary and Emily continued producing episodes that highlighted entrepreneurs, artists, activists, and everyday heroes, all united by their refusal to be defined or limited by age. The podcast quickly gained traction, becoming a beacon for those seeking inspiration and connection. Beyond the digital world, Mary's community initiatives continued to flourish. She collaborated with local organizations to host workshops on technology, creativity, and wellness tailored for older adults. These gatherings were filled with laughter, learning, and mutual encouragement. Mary witnessed firsthand the transformative power of community and purpose. One afternoon, during a workshop on digital storytelling, a participant named Robert shared his long-held dream of writing a novel. Encouraged by the supportive environment, Robert committed to starting his manuscript. Mary saw in him the same spark that had ignited within herself years before. She realized that her role was not just to lead but to nurture the potential in others, to be a gardener cultivating growth. As seasons changed, Mary found herself reflecting more on legacy, not just the impact she left behind but the ongoing ripple effects of her actions. She wrote letters to younger generations, sharing wisdom about resilience, adaptability, and the courage to pursue dreams regardless of age. These letters became part of a community archive, a living testament to the enduring power of hope and purpose. Through it all, Mary maintained a deep connection with her daughter Emily, whose own journey of growth and discovery paralleled Mary's in beautiful ways. Their shared projects, honest conversations, and mutual support were a source of joy and strength. Mary marveled at the unexpected gifts that came from embracing change, the friendships formed, the lessons learned, and the profound satisfaction of living authentically. One evening, as Mary prepared for a community event celebrating aging and innovation, she reflected on how far she had come. From feeling invisible and dismissed to becoming a catalyst for transformation, Mary's story was a testament to the human spirit's capacity to rise beyond limitations. She remembered a phrase Elon Musk had used: "Some people don't like change, but you need to embrace change if the alternative is disaster." That embrace of change had saved her, not once but many times over. The event itself was a joyful celebration, filled with music, stories, and laughter. Attendees of all ages shared their experiences and dreams, inspired by Mary's journey and the collective energy of possibility. As Mary took the stage to offer closing remarks, she felt a profound sense of gratitude and purpose. She spoke about the power of mindset, the importance of community, and the endless horizon of opportunity that awaited each of them. Her words resonated deeply, leaving many in tears and others with smiles of renewed hope. Later, as the crowd dispersed and the night settled in, Mary walked alone under the stars, feeling connected to something greater than herself. The horizon she once feared was now a canvas for dreams yet to be painted. She understood that life's greatest adventures often come not despite age but because of it, because with age came wisdom, clarity, and a fierce, unyielding desire to matter. Mary whispered to the night, "This is just the beginning." And with that, she stepped forward into the vast, unfolding future, ready to explore, to create, and to inspire beyond the horizon. Mary's journey had been nothing short of extraordinary. From the depths of doubt and invisibility, she had risen to a place of purpose, connection, and inspiration. Yet, as she often reminded herself, the journey was never truly complete. Each ending was simply a new beginning waiting to unfold. In the quiet moments of dawn, as sunlight gently warmed her kitchen, Mary reflected on the winding road she had traveled. The regrets that once weighed heavy had transformed into lessons of resilience and hope. The missed dreams that haunted her became the fuel for new ambitions. The losses she had mourned evolved into the foundation for richer relationships. She remembered the moment that had sparked it all, a quote from Elon Musk challenging her to question what she believed about aging and capability. That challenge had been a beacon through the darkest nights. As Mary prepared for another day filled with creativity and connection, she felt a steady calmness rooted in acceptance and anticipation. Her memoir was nearly complete, the podcast flourishing, and the community projects blossoming. Yet, her heart held space for what was still to come. The world was vast, and possibilities remained endless. One morning, a letter arrived from a university inviting Mary to speak at a symposium on innovation and aging. The invitation was an acknowledgement of her growing impact and a chance to reach a broader audience. Mary felt a surge of excitement mingled with nervousness, a reminder that growth always involved stepping into the unknown. At the symposium, Mary stood before a diverse crowd of scholars, activists, and fellow storytellers. She shared her story with authenticity, emphasizing the power of mindset and community in transforming the aging experience. Her message was clear: age is not a limitation but a gateway to new chapters of meaning and contribution. The response was overwhelming. After her talk, many approached to express how her journey had inspired them to rethink their own paths. Mary realized that her story had become part of a larger conversation about redefining aging in America and beyond. She connected with others who were pioneering change, from tech innovators creating accessible tools for seniors to artists celebrating late-life creativity. These new relationships energized Mary, reminding her that no one's journey happens in isolation. Back home, Mary continued expanding her podcast, featuring voices from all walks of life who challenged stereotypes and shared stories of reinvention. Each episode deepened her understanding of the diverse experiences of aging and the universal longing for purpose. One particularly moving episode featured a Navy veteran who had become a community leader advocating for mental health resources among seniors. His story resonated deeply with listeners and sparked dialogues in neighborhoods and online forums. Mary felt grateful to be a part of this tapestry of voices and stories. The balance between personal growth and community impact was delicate but fulfilling. Mary found joy in small rituals, morning journaling, afternoon walks, evening calls with Emily and close friends. These moments grounded her amidst the busyness of her expanding work. She was intentional about rest and reflection, recognizing that sustainability was key to lasting change. As the seasons shifted, Mary revisited her writing with fresh eyes, refining her memoir to capture not just her transformation but the ongoing nature of the journey. She included stories from those she had met along the way, honoring the collective wisdom that had enriched her life. The book was more than a personal narrative, it was a call to action and a testament to the power of community and courage. One afternoon, Mary received an unexpected visit from an old friend, Helen, whom she had lost touch with over the years. Their reunion was filled with tears and laughter, a beautiful reminder that healing relationships was part of embracing life fully. They shared stories, hopes, and plans, rekindling a friendship that added warmth to Mary's circle. Mary's relationship with her daughter Emily also deepened in new ways. Emily had launched a nonprofit focused on intergenerational learning, inspired by their shared work and conversations. Together, they co-hosted events that bridged age divides and celebrated lifelong learning and creativity. Watching Emily grow into her own leadership role filled Mary with pride and gratitude. Throughout it all, Mary held on to the lessons learned from Elon Musk's example, to embrace failure as a teacher, to question assumptions, and to pursue bold visions without apology. These principles guided her decisions and kept her anchored in hope and possibility. One evening, Mary sat by the fireplace, reflecting on the journey that had carried her from fear and invisibility to purpose and connection. She understood that aging was not a curse but a gift. A time rich with opportunity to redefine identity, nurture relationships, and contribute meaningfully. She thought of the countless people she had met, each with their own story of challenge and triumph, and felt a profound sense of solidarity and hope. Mary knew her journey would continue beyond this moment, as it always had, unfolding in new and unexpected ways. She smiled, ready to embrace whatever came next with courage and grace. The story that began with doubt and limitation had blossomed into a legacy of inspiration and empowerment, a legacy that would continue to grow as long as she remained open to change, learning, and love. With a heart full of gratitude and eyes set on the horizon, Mary whispered softly, "The journey continues." And with that affirmation, she stepped forward, ready to live fully, love deeply, and inspire endlessly for all the days to come. Mary felt the crisp morning air as she stepped outside, the sunlight filtering through the trees with a gentle warmth that promised new beginnings. This chapter of her life had brought unexpected joys and challenges, and yet, with every step, she embraced the future with open arms and an open heart. The transformation she had undergone, from a woman shackled by doubt to a beacon of hope and purpose, had been profound, but she knew the path ahead was still filled with discovery. She was no longer merely reacting to life, she was shaping it intentionally, with courage and curiosity. Her podcast had blossomed into a vibrant community, connecting listeners across the country who shared stories of reinvention and resilience. Each episode was a celebration of possibility, reminding all that age was not a barrier but a gateway to fresh adventures. Mary reveled in the conversations she hosted, where guests shared their fears, triumphs, and visions for what it meant to live fully at every stage of life. The stories were as varied as the people telling them, yet all carried a common thread, the refusal to be defined or limited by years alone. Beyond her media work, Mary deepened her involvement in community initiatives, partnering with local organizations to create intergenerational programs that bridged gaps and built understanding. She saw firsthand how young and old could learn from each other, sharing wisdom and energy in a powerful exchange. One project close to her heart was a mentorship program pairing retirees with high school students, fostering guidance and friendship that enriched both generations. Mary's own relationship with her daughter Emily continued to flourish, their bond strengthened by shared purpose and mutual respect. Emily's nonprofit work, inspired by their conversations, was making a tangible difference, and together they dreamed of expanding their reach. They often spoke late into the night, brainstorming ideas and supporting one another's growth. Mary recognized that embracing the future meant not just personal evolution but nurturing those around her, creating networks of support and inspiration. Challenges inevitably arose: technical glitches in podcast production, moments of self-doubt, the physical aches that reminded her of her age, but Mary met them with the same resilience that had carried her through tougher times. She learned to listen to her body and mind, balancing action with rest, ambition with self-care. This balance became a cornerstone of her philosophy, one she shared openly with her community. A particularly memorable day came when Mary was invited to join a panel discussion at a national conference on aging and innovation. Sitting alongside leaders in technology, healthcare, and advocacy, she shared her journey and vision for a society that valued and empowered people of all ages. The audience's response was enthusiastic, and afterward, she connected with many attendees eager to collaborate and amplify her message. These experiences reaffirmed Mary's belief that age should be celebrated as a strength, a wellspring of experience and creativity waiting to be tapped. Mary also continued to write, her memoir evolving into a broader exploration of the cultural narratives around aging and how they could be transformed. Her writing was honest and poetic, capturing the complexity and beauty of growing older in America. Through her words, she invited readers to see themselves as agents of change, capable of rewriting their own stories. One afternoon, during a quiet moment of reflection, Mary received a message from a listener named James. He shared how her podcast had inspired him to reconnect with his passion for music after decades of putting it aside. He had started playing the guitar again, feeling renewed joy and purpose. This simple message touched Mary deeply, a reminder that impact often rippled quietly but powerfully through lives. The seasons changed, and with them, Mary's awareness of life's cyclical nature deepened. She found beauty in the small rituals of each day, the morning coffee, the blooming flowers in her garden, the conversations with friends new and old. These moments grounded her, reminding her that embracing the future was as much about presence as it was about vision. As the years moved forward, Mary remained committed to growth and connection, continuously seeking ways to contribute and learn. She embraced technology not as a barrier but as a tool to amplify voices and build community. Her willingness to adapt and explore new horizons embodied the very spirit she hoped to inspire. Through it all, Mary carried with her the lessons gleaned from Elon Musk's example, the relentless pursuit of innovation, the courage to challenge norms, and the belief that limitations are often self-imposed. These principles empowered her to live boldly and authentically, inviting others to do the same. On a serene evening, Mary sat with Emily on the porch, watching the stars emerge one by one. They talked about hopes, fears, and the joy found in embracing life fully, no matter the age. Mary felt a deep sense of peace and excitement for what lay ahead, knowing that the journey of transformation was ongoing and boundless. She whispered softly, "The future is ours to shape." And with that, she stepped confidently into the unfolding horizon, ready to inspire, connect, and create for all the chapters yet to come. Mary awoke to the gentle hum of the morning, the soft light filtering through her bedroom window casting warm patterns on the floor. She stretched and smiled, feeling the familiar mix of anticipation and calm that had become a steady companion on her journey. Today was special, a day dedicated to launching a new community initiative she had been nurturing for months. It was called Lighting the Way, a mentorship and innovation program designed to connect older adults with young entrepreneurs and creatives. Mary envisioned it as a vibrant exchange of wisdom and fresh ideas, breaking down the barriers that too often separated generations. The idea had come from countless conversations she'd had with listeners, friends, and family. Many older adults felt isolated or undervalued, while younger people yearned for guidance and perspective. Mary saw the potential for a powerful partnership, a shared path to growth and impact. As she prepared for the launch event, Mary reflected on how far she had come. From a place of invisibility and self-doubt, she had grown into a leader, a connector, and an inspiration. The lessons she had learned, about resilience, courage, and the refusal to accept limits, were now the foundation for something bigger than herself. The community center buzzed with energy as volunteers and participants gathered, representing a wide spectrum of ages, backgrounds, and dreams. Mary greeted each person with warmth and enthusiasm, feeling the spark of possibility ignite in the room. The event opened with a powerful speech from Mary, where she shared her story and the vision behind lighting the way. Her words resonated deeply, touching on themes of transformation, mutual respect, and the limitless potential found in collaboration. She quoted Elon Musk, whose fearless approach to challenges had inspired her: "When something is important enough, you do it even if the odds are not in your favor." That quote had been a guiding star throughout her journey, reminding her to act boldly despite uncertainty. Throughout the day, workshops and breakout sessions fostered connections and creativity. Older adults shared their life experiences and professional expertise, while younger participants brought fresh perspectives and technological know-how. Ideas flowed freely, from community projects to innovative startups, and the atmosphere buzzed with excitement and hope. Mary watched as friendships blossomed, mentors and mentees found common ground, and barriers dissolved. It was a living testament to the power of embracing change and learning from one another. Later, as the event wound down, Mary felt a deep sense of fulfillment mixed with humility. She knew that this was just the beginning of a movement, a seed planted that would grow far beyond the walls of the community center. The ripple effects of lighting the way would touch countless lives, creating a legacy of connection and empowerment. In the weeks that followed, Mary remained deeply involved, helping facilitate meetings, sharing resources, and listening closely to the stories that emerged. She was continually amazed by the creativity and resilience of the participants, and she saw reflections of her own journey in their struggles and triumphs. One afternoon, she received a heartfelt message from a young woman named Jasmine, who had been paired with a retired engineer named Frank. Jasmine shared how Frank's mentorship had given her the confidence to launch a sustainable fashion line, blending innovation with environmental consciousness. The success of their partnership was a shining example of what Mary had hoped to achieve, bridging generations to build a better future together. Mary also found new inspiration through her own mentors. Friends and colleagues who challenged her to think bigger and deeper. She realized that learning was a lifelong process and that humility and curiosity were essential companions on the path of growth. Her podcast episodes began to explore these themes more deeply, inviting guests who embodied the spirit of continuous evolution and intergenerational collaboration. Mary's relationship with her daughter Emily blossomed in this rich environment of creativity and purpose. Together, they envisioned expanding, lighting the way, beyond their local community, bringing the model to cities across the country. The prospect was both exhilarating and daunting, but Mary was no stranger to bold ambitions. She embraced the challenge with the same fearless mindset she had cultivated over the years. One evening, as Mary sat by the fireplace reflecting on the journey, she felt a profound sense of gratitude. The doubts and fears that had once loomed large now felt like distant shadows, eclipsed by the light of connection, purpose, and hope. She understood that true transformation was not a destination but a continuous process of becoming. As the flames flickered, Mary whispered to herself, "I am the light. And together, we will light the way for others." With that affirmation, she looked forward with clear eyes and an open heart, ready to continue her journey of inspiring change, building community, and embracing the endless possibilities of life. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?